Hi everyone, this is the Resident Evil 4 remake review. Now I gotta say, this is an almost perfect remake. I gotta say, I really like how they put a lot of effort into carefully remaking the original, which I love the original. I grew up playing it. It was like my first M-rated game that I owned. I had the Wii edition. So, the whole aiming mechanic was actually pretty easy, while, using the controllers on the Xbox edition was pretty tough compared to the Wii. But with this version, it's a pretty fun game. The mechanics are pretty good. I got it on the PS4, so there were a few glitches or a few buggy things about it, but that was mainly because there's only so much the PS4 can handle with this game. I'm pretty sure it's a lot smoother on the PS5, but it still works pretty well on the PS4. Not too many complaints. There's just a little few things that I noticed. Like sometimes the enemies in the distance, the frame rate drops a lot when you play the PS4 edition. But yeah, it's completely fine. Now, my only gripe with this remake is that there are a few tiny portions from the original that they cut off. In the village part of the game, like the first half of the game, are actually, I'm gonna refer to them as acts. So in the first act of the game, the village, there is an option towards the end to face the twin Chainsaw Sisters, or to face two Elegantes, or was it one Elegante? I don't remember. But yeah, there was an option to either go one path, deal with those, or take the other path and deal with them. But in this game, it pretty much forces you just to deal with the Chainsaw Twin Sisters and no extra Elegantes. I kind of wish that they creatively had me deal with those. Maybe I would have liked if I had to deal with both of them, raise the ante, but I'm pretty sure they wanted to keep the pacing pretty smooth, and it might have messed with the pacing. I think the pacing is great throughout the game. The story is the same. The tone is a little bit different. It was very cheesy in the original, and I loved it. There was a lot of cheesy lines said, and some of those lines from Leon in the original are carried over to the new one. Though there are a few that they took out, and I'm completely fine with that. But yeah, they did a good job in staying faithful to the original. I posted a short earlier about shooting the lake in the first act, and yeah, the giant salamander still attacks you if you do that. That was pretty cool. And throughout like the first act, there's a lot of puzzles and there's a lot of replayability through this game. I think that's where this game really shines. It's very replayable. There's like a lot of things that I missed throughout my first playthrough. There's like a few keys that I wish that I looked for or knew where to look, because there's a lot of collectibles in this game. There's more interactive things with the merchant, like trading spindles for like cool parts and tickets and all that stuff. I don't really remember that being a part of the original, but that's a cool thing that they added to this remake. Though there's one very important thing that I wish they worked on in this remake: the villains. The main three villains for each act of the game, they really weren't as memorable as the original. Like, the first boss, he's basically pretty similar to the original. I don't know. I don't remember if he was referred to as the Big Cheese. I wasn't really paying attention through that part of the game, but, the first boss, he's fine, There's not much personality in him. He's just like a walking big guy following you around like Mr. X or Mr. T. Whatever that guy was from the Resident Evil 2 remake. He was pretty much the same thing as that guy. And the second boss, Ramon Salazar, man, they did him dirty. I mean, I liked his new design. I liked it. It was pretty fine. But he was not as memorable as the original. His personality was much more fun in the original. And, well, at least they made his boss fight pretty difficult. I had a pretty difficult time fighting that second boss in the remake. It was much easier in the original. He was just stuck to a wall and you had to dodge. But in the freaking remake, He is crawling around the whole map and spitting acid at you. You have to constantly dodge it. You have to time your attacks properly to beat this guy. And man, I really appreciate how they switched it up with this boss. I really do. Another thing about this game that I thought was kind of cool and also a bummer was the chainsaw guys. They do not have enough of them in this game. I felt like they focused less on the chainsaw people compared to the original game, and they focused on this new type of boss, which took me by surprise when I first started playing the game. I'm like, oh crap, they got a new boss. This giant pig-headed monster following you around trying to destroy you. It's like a new brute monster. I liked it. I wish there were more chainsaw freaks in the remake though. They do not have as many of them. Or I should talk about another boss from the castle, the Vertigo. This guy is just as scary as the original. Man, that is crazy. Now, I remember there were two of them in the original and the remake. I wish they showed what happened with the second Vertigo in the remake, because in the original, you know, that the second Vertigo fused with Ramon and turned into the boss that we fought in the castle. And in this one, you don't really know. I mean, I knew that most likely he fused with that and turned into that crawling, acid-spitting thing. And that's, I'm pretty sure that when they made this, they knew that the fans were going to assume that they were going to fuse. You know, it's not too big of a deal. But if that wasn't the case, then it would have been cool to see the Vertigo reappear on the island. But no, it's all right. I felt like there were some memorable parts of the castle that they didn't really have in this game, and I think that was because of the theme they were looking for. You know, they were looking for more of a dark theme. But one thing that I wish they had were some of the things that the villains said. Now, the villains used to chant Moria Severe all the time in the original, and I loved it because of how, like, iconic and spooky that was. And in this remake, they did not have that, which sucked. The castle in the remake is still just as fun as the original, though I feel like in this remake they put a lot more emphasis on those damn flying bugs, and man, those things are a real pain in my ass. I hated those things. I hate those things a lot, but man, they did a great job with the castle portion in the remake. Loved it. And another thing I really liked was Luis Serra. Now, this is one part of the original that I didn't like. I felt like we didn't have enough Luis helping us out in the original, while in the remake, we have a whole portion of the castle where Luis is actually your partner, kind of like a Resident Evil 5. I really liked how they changed that and have him as a little helper to help you out through that part of the game. Though there was still that portion of the original and the remake where you and Luis were trapped in the house fighting all of the crazy villagers. I mean, both versions of that encounter were really engaging, and I gotta say in the remake it's super difficult. I mean, for me at least, you know, it might be just as difficult in the original. I don't remember it being too hard in the original though, but in the remake they really do make it a lot more intense, and I love it. So yeah, the farm portion was very fun. It reminds me a lot of Resident Evil Village, very replayable. Same with the castle. I'm gonna have to go through the castle again because there's a specific key that I never found going through the castle. Like I said, very replayable. And now the last part of the game is what I probably have the most complaints about, the island. Now I know a lot of people didn't like the island that much from the original, but I actually kind of like the island from the original. It had a lot of scary parts in there. It had the regenerators, and it also had this crab thing towards the end, and of course it had Krauser. Now I'd say Krauser's performance in the remake was alright. I mean, it was a little bit better in the original, and but I gotta say the fight was very engaging in the remake, just as engaging as the original. I'd say it's almost more engaging in the remake because the knife fighting mechanics in the remake is a lot more fleshed out, I'd say. Yeah, So there's a lot more fighting him with the knife instead of like, just standing in one place and just swiping the knife on him. No, there's a lot more specific mechanics for that, and that's what makes the fight with Krauser more engaging in the remake. Oh yeah, another great part of the bosses from the castle would be the guard door. Those blind things with the Wolverine claws trying to attack you. I love how they designed them for the remake. They made the first encounter with it much spookier than the original, I believe. I mean, they're spooky things in general, but I really liked how they emphasized the horror aspect of encountering these things. Of course, the section where you're in the room and you have to like hit the bells to like distract them from you. I felt like that part was pretty easy because there's like a table at the front of that room, and you could just have them like behind the table as you're waiting for it to like turn its back on you just to shoot them. I felt like that part of the game was a little bit easier than the original. I don't know. I haven't played the original in a while, so I'll have to replay that part. But yeah, no, I really like the redesign on these, and of course with all the other mutations like the Las Plagas things just coming out of the head. It's a lot more intense this time around, and especially those spider things. Ah man, I hated those in the remake, because instead of them just popping out of the head and just like attacking you, no, they literally like attach to the bad guy, and then they go running after you like crazy. It's insane. The number one thing that upset me about the island in the remake was the U3. They did not have the U3 boss in the remake, and I was really hoping that I would see that towards the end of the island section, and I didn't see it. I think I might have seen an article out there that they weren't gonna have the U3 in the remake, so I was kind of prepared for that disappointment. But man, it would have been nice to see how they redesigned the U3 for the remake and how the mechanics work into beating it. That would have been nice to see that. That's like probably the biggest complaint I have about the island. Alright, now before I finish talking about the bosses of this game, I can't forget to mention the final boss, Lord Sattler. Now in the original, the boss fight was pretty fun with him, in terms of the classic spider with the eyeballs that you gotta aim for. And I have to say, it was pretty easy in the original. I mean, I feel like in the remake, it was a little bit more difficult, but that's probably because it's a lot easier when you're using their Wii remote to aim at the eyeballs. But in the remake, I kind of used the RPG to cut the battle short, because, I died the first time trying to kill this thing. But, it's just as fun in the remake as it was in the original, I gotta say. So yeah, there were a lot more interactions with Lord Sattler in the original compared to the remake, and I wish there were a little bit more of that, but I'd say it's fine. He's still not as memorable as he was in the original. He had a few quirky, cheesy lines before the final battle in the original, and I understand that they wanted to remove that because they didn't have that here. The island is super fun, and it really makes me look forward to the Resident Evil 5 remake, because, the island basically is what prepared the developers for Resident Evil 5, basically. Like, when everyone played the original back in 05, that's pretty much what prepared audiences for the next installment, which is a more action-oriented installment of the Resident Evil franchise. And that's where the theme of the Resident Evil gameplay really changed for the next two games. Not the greatest decision, but I gotta say, I loved Resident Evil 5. It was a really fun game. And if they go through with a remake, I'm looking forward to it. I had a really good time with the Resident Evil 4 remake. The character designs were nice. I liked how Ashley wasn't as annoying in this remake. Man, she was pretty annoying in the original, I gotta be honest. I really hope they add separate ways as like a DLC for the remake, because the initial game doesn't come with that, though I'm pretty sure right now they're possibly developing it, because it'll be nice to play as Ada Wong in the game. Besides the Mercenaries DLC, I mean, it'd be nice to play her story. It'd be nice to have more campaigns for this game, but not like Resident Evil 6. That was a little bit too much. That was overkill. I gotta say, this game was a real good time. I highly suggest you get it whenever you can. I mean, you know, I'm posting this like 3 weeks after its release, or it's almost been a month. Yeah, it's almost been a month since it was released. So, yeah, I hope you guys have a good time with it. I definitely suggest it. I'll give this game an A minus. And another reminder, go ahead and check out Chase's Shadow Part 1 and 2, and leave a review on both movies, and I'll give you guys a shout out in my next video. And thank you all for watching.